Our eyes never thought the quiet corridors of an art gallery would stir something restless in him. At 24, he was adrift, newly graduated, assisting at his friend's family gallery while searching for a purpose that didn't feel like someone else's dream. The gallery, a tranquil refuge from the chaos of the city, had become his sanctuary, until she arrived. Meher stepped through the glass doors like she belonged to a different era, poised, graceful, and seemingly untouched by time. Her presence was unassuming yet commanding, the kind that silences a room without effort. Our eyes noticed her the first time she wandered through the oil paintings alone, her eyes lingering not on the art, but on something distant, unreachable. She came often, always at noon, always alone. Our eyes couldn't help but watch her, not out of curiosity, but because there was a heaviness about her, a quiet sadness veiled beneath elegance. She wore it like perfume, faint yet impossible to ignore. There was something unspoken in her gaze. Like a story half told. One afternoon, he found her standing before a painting of a stormy sea. She looked lost, as if the crashing waves on canvas echoed something within her. Gathering the courage that felt foreign in his chest, he spoke. "That one's called The Escape. The artist painted it after leaving everything behind." Meher turned, eyes meeting his, the faintest smile brushing her lips. "Leaving everything behind, sometimes that's the only way to breathe." Her voice was low, thoughtful. And in that moment, something shifted. Words, once casual, suddenly meant more. Our eyes felt it, a thread pulled taut between them, delicate yet undeniable. Their exchanges became frequent, layered with meaning that neither dared to fully acknowledge. Our eyes learned she was married, but her words about her husband were always wrapped in politeness, never affection. She spoke of expectations, of roles, of a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt like a cage within. He listened. And the more he listened, the more he saw her, not as the polished figure who walked in each week, but as a woman with desires buried beneath duty. Our eyes didn't understand the gravity of his own emotions, only that they existed, growing with each conversation, each shared silence. He admired her, not just for her beauty, but for the way she carried her sorrow with dignity. As Meher left that day, her hand brushed against his, lingering for just a moment longer than it should have. Either spoke of it. Neither had to. The line had been drawn, and somewhere inside both of them, they knew, it was only a matter of time before it was crossed. And in the stillness of the gallery, surrounded by paintings that told stories of longing, our eyes stood frozen, haunted by a single question. What happens when desire refuses to stay silent? Our eyes told himself it was harmless, that their meetings were casual, coincidental, and perfectly innocent. But the truth gnawed at him with every passing day. Meher no longer felt like a visitor to the gallery. She had become the rhythm of his afternoons, the reason his heart quickened with every chime of the doorbell. It was subtle, how they drifted closer. She began staying longer, lingering by the windows, speaking of art and philosophy in a way that made our eyes feel seen. Their conversations wove between the abstract and the intimate, layered with meanings they dared not acknowledge aloud. She'd mention her favorite poets, he'd recite lines that made her smile. Their bond formed not through declarations, but through moments, small, stolen, and significant. One rainy afternoon, our eyes found her seated by the gallery's bay window, watching the city blur behind raindrops. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup, her expression distant. "Do you ever wish you'd chosen differently?" she asked, eyes fixed on the storm outside. Our eyes hesitated. "Every day feels like a choice I'm still making." She looked at him then, truly looked, and the silence between them tightened, heavy with understanding. Meher didn't speak of her husband, not directly. But the weight she carried told stories words never could, of dinners eaten in silence, of affection replaced by routine, of dreams traded for stability. The line they walked became thinner, more precarious. One evening, Meher invited him to a private exhibit, nothing grand, just a small event in a quiet corner of the city. Our eyes agreed, though he sensed this was more than art. The gallery, surrounded by strangers and dim lighting, they stood close, closer than they had before. Her laughter, soft and unguarded, wrapped around him like a song he didn't know he'd been waiting to hear. When their hands brushed again, it was no accident. Afterwards, they walked along the river in silence. The air was cool, the city's noise a distant hum. Meher paused at the railing, eyes on the water. "I used to think love was about security," she murmured. "But now, I think it's about freedom." Our eyes couldn't respond, not because he didn't know what to say, but because the truth of her words echoed his own unspoken desires. As they stood in the quiet, close enough to feel each other's breath, the boundary between them dissolved, not with a kiss, but with a look that said everything. They turned away, walking in silence, knowing the ground beneath them had shifted. The safety of denial was gone. Something had begun, dangerous, intoxicating, and impossible to ignore, and as the city lights flickered behind them, our eyes realized there was no turning back. Days turned into weeks, yet neither our eyes nor Meher dared to name what had taken root between them. It wasn't friendship. It wasn't love. It was something in between, a suspended reality, fragile and electric. They spoke carefully, measured in tone, their words dancing just shy of revelation. Yet their eyes betrayed them. Our eyes was restless. Sleep eluded him, replaced by the memory of her voice, the weight of her gaze. He told himself to step back, to forget the way she smiled when she thought no one was watching, but desire, once awakened, was not so easily silenced. One evening, as twilight settled over the gallery, Meher arrived unannounced. Her face was pale, her hands clasped tightly, the usual calm in her demeanor fractured. Our eyes locked the door behind her, concern tightening in his chest. "I need to talk," she whispered, stepping inside as if fleeing from something unseen. They sat in the dim light of the gallery's back room, surrounded by paintings that bore witness to their unspoken truths. Meher's voice trembled, not with fear, but with exhaustion. "I can't keep living like this," she said. "Pretending I'm happy, pretending this isn't real." Our eyes didn't ask what this was. He knew. "I've stayed in my marriage because it's comfortable," she continued, eyes distant. "But comfort is not freedom. I've lost myself in the process, become someone I barely recognize." Her confession hung in the air, heavy with finality. Our eyes felt the weight of her words, the raw vulnerability they carried. He wanted to reach for her, to bridge the space between them, but restraint bound him. Not out of fear, but respect. "You deserve more," he said quietly. Meher looked at him then, and for the first time, her eyes weren't guarded. "So do you." Silence fell, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with all the things they hadn't said, all the paths they might take. The world outside the gallery faded, replaced by this charged moment, delicate, dangerous, inevitable. Meher stood, gathering her coat. "I have to make a choice," she said, voice steady now. "And I will. But not in pieces. When I walk away, it won't be to escape. It'll be to begin again." She paused at the door, her hand resting on the frame. "Meet me at the train station tomorrow, 9 a.m. If you're there, we go. If not, we never speak of this again." And with that, she was gone. Our eyes remained frozen, heart racing, caught between the life he knew and the unknown that awaited. Her words echoed in his mind, louder than any doubt. Tomorrow. The station buzzed with early morning life, hushed conversations, the rumble of trains, the faint scent of coffee in the air. Our eyes stood still amid the motion, his heart pounding a rhythm he couldn't calm. Clutched in his hand was a single train ticket. One destination. No plan beyond this moment. The platform clock read 8:57 a.m. He didn't know if Meher would come. Doubt clung to him like fog, and yet, beneath the uncertainty, there was clarity. He had made his choice the moment she walked into his life, not to steal her from another, but to meet her at the edge of possibility. 8:59. Footsteps echoed behind him, light, deliberate. He turned, breath hitching. Meher stood there, no longer polished or poised, but free. Her hair was loose, her eyes bright, her face unburdened. In her hand, a small bag. Nothing extravagant. Just enough to start over. "You came," our eyes murmured. Her lips curved into a soft smile. "So did you." They didn't speak of the past, of her marriage, of the nights spent wondering, of the guilt that once loomed like a shadow. It had all led to this: two people standing on the cusp of something uncharted, driven by a longing neither had dared to name until now. As the train approached, Meher glanced back toward the city skyline, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, slowly, she turned back to our eyes. "No regrets?" she asked. He shook his head, his voice steady. "Only the ones we avoid." The train doors opened with a soft hiss. Without hesitation, she stepped inside. Our eyes followed, the world he once knew shrinking behind him. They sat together, side by side, hands entwined, not as fugitives, but as two souls who had chosen truth over fear. As the train pulled away, the city faded into memory. Ahead, an unknown future stretched wide and wild. There would be risks, consequences, and moments of doubt. But for the first time, they were writing their own story, one not defined by obligation or fear, but by the courage to want more. The journey had begun.